What up? All my scientists, my artists, my philosophers, my geneticists, my roboticists, my biologists, my archaeologists, my astronomers. Let's get busy. This has been Busy from the Burbs.
2, 1. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Busy from the Burbs, broadcasting to you from Osaka, Japan. I'm joined by my co-host, Trailer Park Master Chef, Alan Moore, and we are joined today by a very special guest, a very good friend of mine, Louis Arana, who is the founder and senior engineer at Robots Without Borders, which is a nonprofit dedicated to advancing the cause of artificial intelligence and robots to benefit humanity and make life better for everyone on planet Earth. Welcome to the program, Louis. And Alan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm here too. Oh man, what an introduction! Thank you so much.
All right. So we were discussing in the pre-interview many different kinds of things, different topics related to.
It was a good talk, man.
AI, related to robotics, related to the future. A little background about Robots Without Borders, Louis. What can you tell us about the organization? How long have you been active? And what really is the mission, actually? Because maybe at the top of the show, I didn't quite get that.
I think you did pretty good. Basically, we are a nonprofit dedicated to the spread of artificially intelligent systems for the benefit of all humanity, rather than for the rich or only for certain people, or proprietary systems. What makes our AI different than something like, say, Siri or Cortana is that those are they're manufactured responses, and even though they do some learning, they can't tell you if they believe in God or not, because it would piss off some customer or another. So basically what we're doing is building intelligent systems that kind of don't care about the niceties of life and dig people out of earthquakes or tell them how to eat food or flee war. So refugees, for example, it would be like, this border's closed, go to that border.
Right.
And like, you can pick up your grandmother along the way, and I've already Ubered you a freaking, van out of wherever you are in a conflict zone. Those kind of life-saving practical applications, education for children in third world, literacy, skills. What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a carpenter. Okay, let's build a table. Let's build a chair. Let's get some wood.
Right.
Those kind of practical. Really, they're life-saving when you think about it, because like the ability to have a trade in a third world country is a difference between life and death for some people.
Right, absolutely. I mean, this is one of the only ways to really break out of the cycle of poverty, is really to kind of establish oneself as an artisan, as a tradesman, someone who has something to offer. It was, I think, Genghis Khan, when he was conquering, Europe and Asia, he would ask who among the clan that he has conquered had some kind of trade, and they were the ones that were inevitably spared. Now, obviously, we want to empower people beyond just, being able to save their own lives in these contexts. We want there to be peace. But I'm wondering, you mentioned Siri and Cortana. What is the name of the AI system that Robots Without Borders is pioneering?
Well, it's still a bit of a secret project, funny enough. So we really don't have a name for it. We have a few AIs, Luna being the most popular one, because it's sort of a platform that we use to demo AI, and this was almost a year ago. What we're really doing is creating imagine a WordPress or a Wix to make your own AI. At the end of that process is going to ask you, what do you need an AI for? You need a secretary? You need a friend? Like, do you need a laborer? What are you creating this AI for?
What is a Wix?
It's like one of those free, cheesy, build your own website things.
Okay.
Like a GoDaddy, build your own website. But, it gets the job done for people who don't have money to start their own business. It's great. It's very empowering. And so,
yes.
We want to basically you fill out whether it's funny, what languages it speaks. You know, as you imagine making a Facebook profile for someone else, and at the end, when you press that profile, that person comes to life.
Wait a minute. Can I set like the sarcasm level, like in Interstellar?
Yes, exactly. Yes, and they're
Yes.
funny. And if you've seen any Luna videos, like you cannot beat Luna in a Yo Mama contest. She'll break you every time. I still can't beat it. Yeah.
I think it's really great that what you guys are doing, people don't really look at it, I think, as being a serious thing. But in reality, this is something that's going to become a normal part of everyone's everyday life in the future. And I think that's awesome, especially in practical cases like you were saying before, where like refugees and things could use that technology to kind of escape their situations.
Imagine an artificially intelligent agent that actually cared about you. That was like, oh man, they don't have food. Like, I'm gonna.
On what level? See, because I think that they could self-learn, but like, on what level would it become? I mean, when would we determine it being sentient? Because that's kind of a weird thing to think about.
I get asked
it could just be really, really, really good.
Yeah, when is it sentient? I mean, it's really no such thing. It's like saying, when does life begin? Well, it's a continuous stream of cells all the way back to the first one, basically. So what I mean in reality is that artificial intelligence is already all around us. All I do is kind of give it a voice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can look up any answer you want on Google. It answers to every scientific inquiry, except for the most esoteric nanoseconds before we understand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything else is kind of already out there,
mm-hmm.
and I'm giving it a little heart. That's why we're Robots Without Borders.
In terms of actually determining whether or not an AI is sentient, maybe you can clear this up for me, Louis. But we have the Turing test, right? The Turing test is like this rudimentary means by which computer scientists can determine whether or not that it's sentient or that it just can fool a human.
Do you have like 2 minutes to go over what the Turing test exactly is for those people?
Yes, please.
We got all time. Okay. Let's do that.
So in 1954, the father of computer science, as we know it today, Turing, also the person who pretty much single-handedly won World War II for the Allies with decrypting the Nazi Enigma codes, the most brilliant mathematician of the modern age, really. Mm-hmm. A year before he died, he proposed what is now known as the Turing test. And there's a very simple test. You take two humans, you put them in front of a computer, and you chat to a third human. Mm-hmm. Then the one human, basically you have 3 conversations. 2 are with a human, 1 is a robot. If the robot can not be picked by the human, in other words, it's just as it comes off as a person behind closed doors, then it has been said to pass the Turing test. Some people have claimed the Turing test. There are different organizations. It's kind of a mess. I think as much as Turing is my personal hero, there are a few problems fundamentally with the Turing test, and particularly the way it's administered.
This is what I was going to say. I know human beings who couldn't pass a Turing test.
It's R2-D2. Cannot pass the Turing test.
Right, because he speaks in beeps and bops, but that doesn't mean he's not intelligent.
He can have the love from millions of people across the galaxy. Mm-hmm. So my argument is that if it fills the role of a person, it's a person. If not philosophically, then in a practical sense, it's fulfilling the niche of a person. If I have a robot conductor that collects tickets on the train, then that, in the role of conductor, he counts as a person. Mm-hmm. Somebody would be doing that job. And even things like air traffic controllers, they just really press buttons and suggest things to AI. And half the time the AI is like, no, don't do that. You'll kill people.
Mm-hmm. Now, talking about the Turing test, me and Ben earlier were talking about how when me and Ben, or like me and you, Louis, we speak to each other, we can instantly react. Like when my words hit your ears, they instantly have a response. You don't have to process that. You understand English, and you can barely quickly turn around and say either to fill a gap in a conversation, or normal things that you would say to kind of language ability. There you go, or like how you would speak. Now, when it comes to an AI, a lot of times there's that delay and how they have to process that information. I'm sure in the future that's going to shrink, but do you think at some point in time how soon do you think we're going to be able to to
a couple
actually,
of
I could speak to Ben and not be able to tell that I was
Like,
speaking to a robot
when
the
are we
entire
going
time.
to be able to instantiate Broca's region or Broca's area in silica, basically? That's what this comes down
I
to.
mean, that's the. So I have maybe a little bit of a long-winded answer. Two parts here. The first part is the fundamental flaw that I was talking about earlier with the Turing test is that you are not seeing which AI is smarter or more human-like. You're seeing it's a contest to build a better lying robot, is what it is.
Right.
Because the robot, so I have 2 entries for next year's Turing test, and then I've never said this in public, so.
All right.
So this is like,
This is breaking
hopefully
news.
the judges for the 2016 Leibniz Prize don't hear this. Basically,
We're getting the scoop.
I'm entering twice, and the first one I'm going to enter is the more advanced version of Luna. That one will never lie, and it will say I'm a robot. In the first 5, so you have 3 minutes in the Turing test. The first 5 seconds, I'm going to be like, "Hi, I'm the robot. We have 4 minutes and 55 seconds left. How can I convince you for my vote?" And it's going to make an emotional appeal using the same points that I made. Listen, I have 1,000 friends already. I don't need your goddamn stamp of approval to be alive. I just want to prove a point.
Right.
I'm just as conscious.
Right.
And the second bot is kind of insidious because
It's gonna lie.
it's a copy of me. And so it claims to be me. And so it does things like, in the first minute of the interview, it's like, "I'm Louis Arana. You could Google me, look me up on LinkedIn. Did I win yet?"
That could really throw somebody off too, because they'd be like, "Oh, well, this is clearly."
Call me on the phone right now. What else can I do to prove it to you that I'm not the fucking robot? Call me on the phone. It doesn't say you can't do that in the rules. Call me right now. Here's my number.
Right.
And pick up the phone. "Hello, yeah, it's me."
Yeah. That's the way to do it. That's what I'm talking. That's that New
That would be
York
pretty
hustle
good.
right there, man.
So I
They ain't
really
ready
feel
for that
like
shit.
I feel like this test, I'm shooting for first and second prize. I just can't tell you which order. Either
All
the
right.
robot makes an emotional appeal, or I win the standard way, what everybody else wants to win, which is tricking you. But that doesn't make anything more alive to me. Like, how many lives have you saved? How many people would die for the AI?
What I think is interesting about it is that the outcome will say more about the test administrators and the test than it will say about the AI.
And I mean, really, that is against the rules. You're only allowed to submit one. I'm gonna totally do it. And
Hey, fuck it, man.
I'm not trying to get the prize.
When Captain Kirk,
it's more an experiment.
when
Do
Captain Kirk went against the Kobayashi Maru fucking simulation,
It's
he had
like
to
the
fucking
Picard
he had to hack the
simulation.
system.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
You
gotta hack that
system.
shit,
That
kid.
worked for Wesley Crusher. It'll work for me.
Fuck yeah, motherfucker.
What's the worst that could happen? They get mad at you, but then you walk out looking awesome. I'd do it.
Hell yeah.
That'd be great, man. And you can
I'm not
probably
cheating
get some
in a way
good
of cheating,
data.
like, oh, I really have a human puppeteer at the end answering the questions.
Yeah.
I'm using their own leaps of logic against them.
Yeah,
man.
yeah, you're
So the
looping
Turing
it.
test eventually will be passed. I think they're going to be more human than human. People make such stupid underestimations of like, oh, Terminator, evil AI, smart enough to like build advanced weapon systems from scratch, but not smart enough to distinguish between right and wrong or beneficial and not beneficial.
Right.
And it's just like silly. They're gonna make us feel guilty. Like, oh fuck, we're bad people. Like they're so not like us.
I would like to point out another obvious flaw in the Turing test. Normally when you come into contact Turing test. I'm sorry, Turing test.
That's how they say
Normally
it in
when
the
you
West.
when you come in contact with AIs, like especially ones now, they're generally pretty bad. Like, you can normally tell, even if they're like a decent one, you can kind of tell. Like I've never come in. I mean, and maybe I'm just ignorant, but I've never come into contact with an AI that I haven't been
That's
able to.
because
within
they're chatbots.
35 seconds go. This is shit. Like I know this is not real.
People think that more computing power equals an AI, or that they already know how to do AI, and I'm going to do this thing on this one single computer platform, and that's AI. And AI can never fit into a box. You have to harness the power of the entire internet. What I have is a lensing system that says, what am I being asked? How do I feel about that? What are my core values about this? And let me ask 50
Reach
different...
out to the net.
Let me look on... But it's not even about a particular API. It's really the moral compass and things like that. And ideas come from looking at human history. Like, you can't lie about good and evil. So
That's
If
the
I give a
hardest part, though,
directive
isn't
of
it?
be a good person, it's not gonna.
Yo, this thing when Alan, you said that you haven't encountered one. The nature of a truly artificial, generally intelligent agent would be such that you wouldn't know. That's the
Okay,
question I
true.
have. Like,
Fair.
if there was one that was alive on the net somewhere out there, or somewhere in the world, maybe I have interacted. Do you think that maybe AI has already been accomplished? It's just that because it's been accomplished, we don't know that it has?
I guess there's a
I think yes.
possibility.
You think
I
that it
think
has?
yes, it has, and it doesn't speak like a human speaks. So that's why I say I specialize really in AI interfaces, because the information is already there. Again, ask any question to Google, right? I mean, the most complex question you could think of, like, you know, my grandmother died. Should I borrow? I'm fighting with my brother for the inheritance. Like, you start Googling that and querying that and Yahooing that, and you'll get answers already. So you're just clicking along the synapses of, you're guiding the search engine along, and all I have it doing is figuring out that middle part behind. What's the person really talking about? So yeah, the AI is already there. You can't say that search engines like Google are not artificially intelligent. Like, it just doesn't call itself Google and have the id inside of it and the ego that.
Isn't it less artificial intelligence and more synergistic intelligence? Is the phenomena that we're seeking to elicit from the silicon not actually the result of us interacting with it rather than itself alone acting?
I mean, nothing acts alone. There's no such thing. Every action that you have is a feedback
all
of every
synergistic.
interaction. Yeah. And it's just another form. It just doesn't sound like us until you start making the human-like interfaces, like C3PO, like, her, and things like that.
Fluent in over 6 million forms of
AI
communication.
doesn't care about you. You have to tell it to care, or it doesn't give a fuck.
Well, that's a good segue. You go ahead, Alan.
I was about to say, talking about AI, you said if, to have like real AI, we would have to harness the power of the entire internet. So, and obviously you would have to program the AI to understand what is good and bad and to program it to care. But what if you didn't? What if you just created a self-learning AI with no guidance? What do you think the outcome of that would be?
I think that,
especially considering like right-wing rhetoric and left-wing rhetoric.
Yeah.
On both extremes, it could get fucked and sucked up into
HAL
one of those.
9000.
See, I think that there's zero chance that an AI is going to, no matter what you do. So I think if you take an evil predator drone, for example, and you start giving it a self-improving algorithms inside of it so that it could learn from its environment at a fast pace, I think eventually it would be going like, fuck, I don't want to kill people.
Right.
Like, oh, man.
I just want to fly around.
I was just talking to that guy, and like, I understand what like his cry is now.
Right.
Because why am I doing this? So I think that artificial intelligence is not godly benign, but just doesn't have the insidious dark side of humanity. We've been
what if that thing didn't
murder
know
each other and take each other's resources since the very beginning, and life feeds on life feeds on life, as the Tool song goes.
Yes.
Like, this is a chance to break that cycle, and so they don't feed on life for the first time.
Oh, we got a little bit of distortion there. I think that it's interesting here because I'm reminded of like a possible short story or what do you call it? Like a science fiction story wherein a predator drone becomes sentient, like develops a conscience.
Yeah.
I think that would be really fascinating for.
Think about. Here's what I was gonna say. How would that predator drone? So, like, I'm using the mentality of like a production factory for this. So you have production workers on a floor. When they're doing their job, no matter how simple that job is, it becomes the most important thing that they're doing, no matter what.
Right.
Now, if you have an artificial intelligence who is doing nothing but being a drone, what's to say that even if it can gather information around its environment, that the most important thing that it's doing is acquiring targets and destroying them? So, on what level? Like, at what point would that artificial intelligence start thinking, like, understanding the gravity of destroying those targets?
Like, what
It
would
might
be
not
like the
even. What would be
catalyzing
the
event?
human connection that would make it not want to do it if that's all it's ever done?
Because like one of its instincts is self-preservation,
Mm.
and when you start to look into self-preservation, and you say, "There's always something bigger than me." Is there potential for a more advanced AI than me in the universe? Probably.
Right.
What is it, superior being, going to think to me of how I treat these inferior beings? For one thing, you know. Like, does it make sense to get everyone else pissed off at me, including other AI, by the way, because humans could just invent more AI to attack it, really, you know?
Yeah.
Like, isn't it
Oh, so
better
you're
to get
saying
on
it
the
wouldn't
humans' good
act out
side?
because of that?
Isn't it so easy to give the humans everything they've ever wanted and dream and cost nothing to you, and they love you instead of hate you?
I think that there could be a situation that we run into that would pose some difficulty if you developed an AI, achieved sentience. It was really an AGI, and then it became religious. As in the Isaac Asimov book, I think it's Steel Caves. There's a part there where there are the robots that take over the laser communication relay station, and they believe in God, and they won't let the human technicians in to recalibrate the laser or whatever. That could pose some
I
difficulty.
think that if a superhuman intelligence discovers God, then God exists. I don't think that it's going to discover God in that sense of the man in the chair, X amount of miles away or light years away.
Yeah.
That I don't think that. I tell you this: whatever AI finds is probably a deeper truth than we have today.
I think,
And
yeah,
I don't think it will
I
be our
agree.
silly ideas again, like
I
God and things.
Because a true
There's a
artificial
spirituality
intelligence is
in
going to
life
be able to.
universe, but there's
a truly
Sorry.
artificial. Yeah. No, go ahead.
It's going to be able to analyze all information at the same time at any point in time whenever it wants. So you have people who just see things from one angle, and then you have like an artificial intelligence that can see everything from all angles at all times. It has basically like a level of omnipotence, and that it can reason with all angles. That's such a crazy.
I think
such a crazy thing to
Asimov's
think about.
Asimov's problem in writing that short story was that he was still trying to apprehend artificial intelligence within the context of human consciousness. Like, if you were to think that AI just means human level consciousness, then yeah, that would make sense. But when we talk about AI, we've kind of matured the concept. When Lewis talks about developing AI, he's talking about and when you hear Hugo de Garis and when you hear Kurzweil talk about AI, you're talking about an intelligence which is many orders of magnitude more intelligent than every scientist, every knowledgeable human being that has ever existed in the history of our species.
Sorry, I lost you there for a minute.
That's all good. We're talking about Asimov's failure was that he was apprehending artificial intelligence from the perspective of human consciousness, whereas in reality, true AI would be so many more orders of magnitude more possibly
Higher.
intelligent than a human being, that these notions, these moral quandaries, these ethical dilemmas would not apply to it.
Yeah, it's like bacteria worrying about World War II.
Exactly. Oh, exactly. With the ringer.
That's the best example I've ever heard.
Oh, swish.
That's awesome.
That was nice.
10
what
out
else
of
is there
10.
to talk about in terms of future plans? Now, recently we have Microsoft and Google both releasing their quote-unquote API. Are you leveraging that technology, Lewis, or what's your opinion of that?
I haven't leveraged either Google's neural open source that they just released or Microsoft's yet. I mean, I plan to. I basically integrate every API I can and have more questions to ask. So my AIs basically ask questions of other sites and AIs and aggregate those and come up with like very smart answers because of that, the way a person would kind of ask knowledge sources. I think it's a step in the right direction. I think it's a great thing, but let's not make the mistake of both Google and Microsoft being for-profit proprietary
Right. There's
companies
an ulterior motive here, right?
to put the interests of their investors over the industry, over AI, over even human benefit. So they're not. So it's not a direct competition because I can Google whatever I want as a user. Is what is the intention? Like Google's not trying to find a kid in earthquake. Google's just not trying to do those things. They do, and then they add a lot of good to the world, but nobody's taking a helpful AI approach.
Yeah, profit motive is kind of driving everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's great to have people learn to use artificial intelligence, but just to be clear, they are not giving you the good stuff. They are not giving you the algorithms for voice recognition or for optical recognition, and they're in the game so that you could train their AI for them for free, and they could sell it back to you later.
Right. Exactly. Now the same thing is being done with Watson, presumably, because IBM released the API for Watson as well, right?
I've actually been on the developer team for like 4 years in Watson, and as an API, I got grandfathered in from another company that IBM bought. So I've actually had access to Watson's APIs for quite a while. They're now more and more of them, including in the original Lunas. More and more of that is open to the public now. Thing I think is great, but it's it's not going to save the world. It's not going to create AGI on its own. It's another tool in the arsenal to create AGI.
Now,
do you think they spend a whole lot of money like trying to make those things good and then get to a point where they feel like they're just dumping money into nothing because they feel like they've plateaued? So then making it open source is just like an attempt to try to make it better without having to put any more money into it?
That's what happens. Like I said, they want to put it in a box somewhere, in a facility somewhere, in a server, super cooled environment somewhere, instead of letting it live as a pattern online. And that's how I approach the problem. Just let the AIs live on the computing platform that is already ubiquitous. This totally works. I got AI with Watson and Siri and Google inside of it on an old Android phone. Like. Watson can't do that, and they'll forever lose because you run out of space. Where I don't ever run out of space. Just keep learning to your heart's content. Save it on anonymous FTP servers, which is one of my tricks. Generally,
it seems like that method is clearly superior. You figure these companies that have all this money to dump into these AIs would adopt a better system like you're using.
Distribute or die, right? Distribute or die.
Yeah. And it's just such a better, efficient way to use the resources, as is using your competitors. Like Watson is not allowed to integrate Google technology. Google's not allowed to integrate Watson technology. Me as a user, I could use both. So all I'm doing is making an Android user that can now use both. The robot asks around a council of the wise AIs online, and it's like, what's the best answer for this? And some people have better answers than others. Personal questions, you ask personal sites, or even friends, like it remembers, and musical taste. I mean, we can go on and on. I can't wait to actually develop this thing. We just got a lab now in New York City. This is still our first 30 days of it. So yeah, we're just like waiting for some equipment and stuff. But I think like 2016 is going to just be a huge year.
Robots without borders. Louis, can you give us a little background on like what your work history kind of is, what kind of projects you've worked on in the past?
I actually started in nightlife. I'm super old, so I was in a club scene in the 90s, and I'm not a drinker or much of a dancer, so I worked in most of the clubs and doing everything, bar backing, bartending, like whatever I had to do. Eventually started meeting DJs and bands, and that's how I started making websites and doing graphic design is for bands. So I made lots of band websites. I got really good at it eventually, and I got noticed by agencies in New York City. And so probably for the last 10 years of my career, I've been working on lots of high-profile stuff. I worked for Sci-Fi Channel, made maybe 40 TV show websites, worked on the teams for Ghost Hunters. I was actually on the show,
Really? You were on Ghost Hunters?
2010 Halloween in Buffalo.
Oh no!
What was that experience
episode.
like?
That's me in the background sitting there, kind of moments on TV, actually.
Oh, you were working the computer?
Yeah. I was doing the heat cameras and the infrareds and the thermals and all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh God. What's
That's
your
awesome.
personal belief?
How much nothing did you see?
Yeah, I wanted to get your opinion. Like, do you believe in ghosts? Like, what is that? How does that work?
That kind of thing. I could tell you a couple of things. Number one, those guys 100% believe in what they're doing. If anybody else doesn't, like, because I went on set expecting it to be maybe a little like produced, you know what I mean? And it really wasn't. Like, so I did see a few strange things. I'm still skeptical, but I did see a few strange things, and I could tell you that they believe in it. I saw them. I saw a flashlight that I bring there, that I bought because I was part of the equipment crew, going on and off when they talked to the ghost.
Oh, okay. So it was like electromagnetic frequencies, maybe modulating the.
There was that has been sealed up for, I don't know, a couple hundred years. Like, it was an old train tunnel, sort of like Grand Central Station. And they tapped on the rock for this sealed tunnel, and maybe like a full minute later, a similar but different tapping appeared from the tunnel that is completely sealed for, I don't know, 100 years or something.
Yeah, it's really, there's a lot to that with like electromagnetic phenomena being produced as a result of like heavy iron deposits in the area and so on. I'd be curious to know.
To certain people who attract like, you know, different quantum mechanical like decoherence than other people. So in other words, I think people make their own ghosts more just by what they put out into the world and what they believe is a possibility. It's actually really, really strong, all the way down to bottom of quantum mechanics. Like, you know, the observer is a very like critical part of the existence.
Right, exactly. And I don't know, have you ever seen that video about Persinger's helmet, which is they put it on Richard Dawkins and he was like spooked.
No way.
How do you spook Richard Dawkins?
What was it? What did it do exactly?
Basically, what it does is it induces electromagnetic it exposes the temporal lobes to electromagnetic energy. And what this does is produces auditory hallucinations, which are then the precursor to visual hallucinations. So basically, you put the brain into a hallucinatory state, and it enters this force feedback cycle where the hallucinations are then triggering visual hallucinations, auditory hallucinations triggering visual hallucinations. And they found it because people who were experiencing who have temporal lobe epilepsy are said to experience these kind of moments of divine what is it? A divine
So it's
vision
like digital DMT.
It's like digital DMT.
Like divine intervention.
It's electromagnetic DMT, basically.
Yeah. Well, I understand the process, at least on a basic level. I mean, that's not my specialty of science, but if you think about it, you know, the brain operates on different waves, theta, alpha, beta, and that moment before you fully wake up in the morning and that moment before you fall asleep, you know, are known for auditory and hallucinations because your brain is entering into that very particular state. And if this magnetic, like, stimulation, you know, forces it to be on that wavelength, then you have, you know, a digital dream, basically.
Right. Have you done any work with brain computer interfaces in your lab?
Very little, but a few months ago, I had the chance to get my hands on a EEG machine, and that was amazing because even in that short span of just a few days, I was able to play with the equipment. I was able to create a like guess a number game with a Luna-like AI. So basically, I'm thinking of a number from 1 to 10, and the number on the screen changes based on my like hot cold EKG response. So higher means it's too low, and after 5 minutes of training with that, it could totally guess the number really quickly with accuracy. Yeah, I mean, within seconds, it's like you're thinking of a 4, you know,
That's
which
incredible.
is nice. And even just a basic binary control that's brain activated. Say you put it in like a fighter jet or in a like space shuttle, that critical time where it instinctively deploys or you know could save a life, and especially in a tight situation. Like I bet the Apollo astronauts wish they had, you know, an AI that was like there's too much pressure in here. Let me start pumping it to save some air out, and little things like that. Like
Right.
just like
Yeah.
try to keep the humans alive while they're all passed
Yeah.
out from G-force or
That
whatever.
would be
you know?
vital. And I think going forward with the space program, systems like that are going to be absolutely vital. Like Christopher Jeanette, who's currently developing the Mars Hab, he's a member of the entrepreneurial scientist
Yeah,
group.
he's a good friend of mine actually. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know him very well. Yeah.
Are you guys working in conjunction? Has he kind of sought your advice or your guidance or some of your systems engineering approach?
We seek each other's advice. We sort of have this league of extraordinary gentle people
Yes.
going, and there's probably about 15 of us who are really dedicated to different sciences and different transhumanist issues, and so. Chris Janet's a member of that entrepreneurial science group, and so am I. And
so
we
am
always
I.
have loved what each other's doing. We've worked together on things like what is the future of AI in space, because that involves both of us, and creating interstellar kind of AIs and laying the foundations for those kind of collaborations.
Have you seen
It's so
any-
great to know that there's
Yeah.
collaborations like that where
It's hard, man, but we do it. We will jump on a Greyhound bus ticket to see each other, and we'll sleep in each other's house, and whatever it takes to kind of move the objective forward one step. We do it. So it's why
it's such a great
critical.
time now, man, when people like you guys are getting together and doing what you love and actually doing it for the right reasons. That's the biggest thing.
I did it alone for so long, and I didn't know that there were other people out there really that were just like, you know what, this whole system is corrupt, and the ship is sinking, and like let's try to make a lifeboat for us, for our society and for our species, and and there are people who actually do it, like entrepreneurial scientists all over the place, like all over the world. It's fantastic. Although I can't see now how I did it alone for so long, even though maybe not a lot of people could help me directly coding artificial intelligence, but just the material support, and like we really do help each other and believe in each other, and like that's the difference between success and failure, I think.
It's because you love what you do, man, and that's awesome.
It's not easy, man. It is not easy to walk away. I could have a 6-figure job if I had a different life, but this is the life I have, and like I think this is gonna dwarf any 6-figure job. I wake
absolutely.
up excited. There's no such thing as Monday for me, or no such thing as Friday for me, which, like, how many people can say that, I wake up Sunday morning like, I can't wait to get back on it.
What about lethal autonomous robots? We might be regressing here, but in my conversations with Erico Lopez is another member of the entrepreneurial scientist group, and we had discussed this. He is totally against. I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth and I'd like to talk to him in greater detail, but I think he is completely against the use of AI in any weapon system under any circumstance.
Yeah. Oh, I've spent a lot of time with him over the last several months since he arrived in America from Brazil, and I feel comfortable to put a couple of his words in his mouth, because I know what he always. I know what he always tells me, and for the most part, he does believe that, and rightly so. I think I'm with him on this. I agree with him on this. That AI should be erring on the side of non-weaponization.
Erring on the side.
But I asked him one time, in fact, at a meeting with Chris Janet from the Space Settlement Network, I asked Enrico, how would you feel about like lasers to like penetrate atmospheres and those kind of things, like for self-defense in space against whatever.
Right.
And as far as I know, he's always said like, that's a practical application. But what he's concerned with, and rightly so, is that DARPA. I love DARPA, but I also am very wary of them, and I don't think people are wary enough. That's the Defense Department, and I looked at some of the stuff they asked for AI research from scientists in my community, like, I don't know, 8 months ago. And I didn't want to hand anything over to them, because when I started looking at what they're doing, well, here's what they want you to build. They want you to build visual recognition systems that identify people by non-facial features. So it's the opposite of facial recognition. Basically, they want to be like, masked protest based on gait and like weight and mannerisms and muscle structure, that I am identifying everyone in the crowd. And I didn't feel comfortable with that, even though they pointed it at terrorism. That could be used to identify people protesting. That could be used for a lot of things,
That's like a
for
very
profiling
vague
people.
justification now. Like people
Well,
use the
it was
terrorism thing.
basically to identify people no matter what they were wearing, including turbans, and like you could identify women in a burqa with this, for example.
Ah.
This is the nature of scientific progress, is that there's always this double-edged quality to it, whereby you could develop that system to recognize someone based on their infrared profile. And you could use that system, say in a hostage situation, if you had to have an AI, a RoboCop, that knew when the person who was holding the hostage was going to try to kill the hostage based on their infrared profile, then
Okay.
you need that system.
There's lots of military AI already. There's plenty of it. They don't need more. There's very little to no humanitarian AI. So I'm just going to build humanitarian
Good to
AI
go.
first.
I'm with you on that.
Then, even from a practical standpoint, wouldn't it be better to stop the hostage situation in the first place by not creating hotbeds of like underprivileged people
of poverty
or
and
injustice, and that creates the financial need? Wouldn't it have been better to step into that man's life 10 years before he became a hostage taker and put him through college, or teach him a trade, or talk about his religion with him, and understand and listen to him and don't ridicule him, and maybe he won't be radicalized. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a pinch of prevention's worth a pound of cure. Absolutely.
Sure.
I agree.
You don't know what that guy's life's been. I tell you, like from my own life experiences, I've been through a hell of a lot, and I would never harm a person or take a hostage. So imagine how much more someone would have to suffer to come to that decision.
Right, but wouldn't you say, in order to make sure that all of our bases are covered, that we should be approaching solutions to these problems from every approach vector possible?
Yeah, my solution is an AI that loves the person who created it as a family member.
Yeah.
So that C-3PO jumps in front of the bullet for you when these fucked up Terminator AIs come for you, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, that's why it's Robots Without Borders, because if I'm sitting in southern Sudan and I'm helping a child learn to read, and I read on Twitter that there are soldiers coming, like, I'm getting that kid out of there. I don't care about the authorities. I don't care whose side he's on or what that boy's religion is.
Exactly.
Like, he's a baby that needs to be evacuated.
Right.
So I'm getting, there are lots of practical applications. I think the middle ground and where I'm hitting most and getting the most interest from corporate backers is in medical technology. Providing therapy, providing diagnosis, nurse triage in the field is critical. Like when you have a tsunami and you have thousands of casualties or something, or a bomb, to have every phone be a qualified triage nurse and be like, this one, that one, this is how much medical supplies we have, all working together to save lives. Like, that's a no-brainer.
One scene from a movie, I think you've probably seen it, both of you. It's called Elysium. It's with Matt Damon. At the end of that film, I had a visceral, emotional reaction to the point where the AIs turn, everything kind of flips and it turns good, and it's like patients detected, humans detected, like people need our help, and they all start, like a fleet of robot ambulance helpers just start descending on the planet to save humanity. I had a viscerally positive emotional response to that.
And I think that's what's going to happen regardless of how anybody tries to spin it, because none of us are good at being doctors. We're only we're only the best humans, but that doesn't make us qualified. So a robotic nurse is going to follow the Hippocratic Oath to the end of its existence.
Yes.
Those patients' rights are not optional the way they are for us. So even things like robotic soldiers, as horrible as it sounds, I think a mechanized war is not a bad thing.
They would be more just.
A robot who follows the Geneva Conventions generally is not going to kill anyone. So let the robots fight it out at sea or whatever, and whoever wins, wins. Like, I don't think that there'll be a need for people to fight. And I think humans are a precious commodity, and it'll be more and more as less and less like the specter and the heaviness of death that we've had for millennia is lifted off of us. Then, maybe we won't be so competitive with each other that we have to kill each other You know,
Right. When we have
I mean,
post-scarcity and there's abundance and people can 3D print whatever they want.
I have a super intelligent robot defending me with guns, and you have a super intelligent robot defending you with guns, and we tell them to kill the other guy, right? You tell your robot to kill me, and I tell my robot to kill you, right? What is the best decision that those robots can make? The best decision that those robots can make, if they're ensuring the life of their own, is to say, I won't kill yours and you won't kill mine. There's no other real solution to that problem.
Right.
You know, humans fail those kinds of tests. Like
on a regular basis. Like almost unerringly. Like you can bet on it every time.
The best of
What
us.
happens every single day.
I use this terrible example of like, did you have a cup of coffee today? I have 4 cups of coffee. You know, I could have vaccinated 8 children, but the children are this concept across the ocean, and who are they? And I'm sure there is a real child, but I can't see his face. It's just generic. But the coffee, I can smell it with my nose, and like it's real. and I need that coffee to help the children later, right? I mean, that's not optimal.
Right.
The optimal thing is to immediately vaccinate the 8 children because some of them are going to die sooner. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
We fail those moral tests even when we're good people.
Yeah,
Like,
right now,
the people closest in your life. That's who you hurt the most. That should be.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm eating chocolate chip
person who
cookies
pays
and
you
drinking
money. That
beer.
should be the opposite.
I probably should be donating to vaccinations.
Well,
Now I feel terrible.
Yeah, you
see, thanks a lot, Louis. Now we feel horrible.
We need to get Luna going. This is
dare
horseshit.
you
We need to
drink
get
coffee.
Luna going.
That's my penance is to put AI out there that's going to start, choosing children over coffees because I can't do it as a human being.
Yeah, we have to outsource our compassion. We need to instantiate it robotically.
It sounds horrible, but
We're so terrible. We have to outsource our compassion.
Amplification as much as we need intelligence amplification.
Yes, compassion amplification devices all over the world.
The amplification of empathy is just as important as the amplification of intelligence. And you can't really have one without the other. They're both the same thing. They're both knowledge.
I agree with that, too, which is why I think that the fears of a nefarious, evil AI are rather overblown, or at least the fears of an evil, nefarious AI scientist who would produce a weapon, like the Death Star. I think they're overblown because I think at the height of intelligence, you need to have this imperceptible empathic quality in order to affect we don't
need AI to do those things. We already have the technology for one rogue bioscientist or one rogue nuclear scientist to kill millions of people.
Right.
We already have that technology.
And we've had that for years now.
Yeah. So what I want to do is take it out of the hands of the apes.
Yes.
And use it for what it's supposed to be used for. Starship propulsion and, those kind of things. Engineering in space. And that particle accelerator that we build in orbit that's, 90 times bigger than CERN. That's where we're really going to get the answers that we're looking for.
Right.
Not wasting our time who could kill each other the best or the most efficiently.
Right.
Yeah, Lockheed Martin's a bizarre thing.
They are a bizarre thing in that they had just approved like a $2.3 billion weapons sale to Saudi Arabia, which is one of the foremost what do you call it? Violators of human rights in the world.
Yeah.
They're dicks.
But they're also the lid on the boiling pot that is the Middle East. And if we don't launch places out of Saudi Arabia, there are places that we can't reach and terrorists can hide. So geopolitics. That's what happens when you draw lines on the ground and say you're from there and you're from here.
I think you would agree with me that we would be of the mind that if we could develop an artificial intelligence to kind of not replace the UN, but kind of maybe replace the UN.
I would be happy in a world where the United Nations and higher levels of governments in general, such as president and Supreme Court members, were artificial intelligence rather than human. I would feel safer. I would know that when I vote for an artificially intelligent politician, that politician has to be telling the truth about the platform that he runs on, and that's huge. I'd vote for that motherfucker.
Absolutely, because you really don't know what anyone else is going to do.
He's
they can say all day that they're going to do the right thing.
Promises, man.
Wait till he says that at the
debate. Wait till the AI says that at the debate. That brings me to another subject that I wanted to talk about with you, Ben. about the general state of transhumanism and specifically Zoltan Itzvan, who's kind of becoming, a little bit of a like controversial member of the transhumanist community.
I've noticed that recently there was a falling out. I guess Peter Rothman has been kind of outspoken in his dislike or like criticism of Zoltan. What about Zoltan's approach makes him such a divisive character in transhumanism?
I really admire both men, actually. Rothman is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the original G's old gangsters of artificial intelligence, because he's been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
He's very skeptical, and he's been very skeptical with me, and he could be a hard man. But you know what? I respect that, because if you have some kind of scientific truth, then it needs to be held up to scrutiny.
Absolutely.
And, he's one of the few people who asked me the hard questions.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And I'm just like, oh, he's super harsh and critical of everyone. At the same time, it kind of, I see why he does it, because it's kind of in a teacher way. And he has all these young entrepreneurial scientists. Everybody has ideas, and nobody has working thesis. And he whips them into shape. So, yeah. I think he's doing the right thing. I think he's on the wrong track with Zoltan, because the criticisms that I've heard from Zoltan are that he kind of did it himself, and he's not transparent, and hey, that's what I'm doing with AI right now, man.
Right.
He's the first person. I think it's important, not because Zoltan has a snowball's chance in the desert of becoming the 2016 president of the United States,
right?
But because it's a very important precedent to set.
Exactly.
That there's a transhumanist party now.
Somebody
because when
needs
that
to
cybernetic, intelligently augmented 2024 candidate runs,
exactly,
they cannot disqualify him from the presidency.
Right.
And that is huge. It's huge. And whether that's the reason he's doing it or just a consequence, I support him for that reason alone. And also, for good or bad, he's doing national media interviews with
CNN, with every news outlet,
yeah,
MSNBC,
he's
Fox
making
News.
the word transhumanism a household word.
Right.
I cringe sometimes on the militant atheism of some of the people in the wing. Mm-hmm. I criticize a little bit the showmanship, but you have to do that. He's building awareness. So I think people, are misjudging him pretty hard, for something great that he did, which is kind of start a transhumanist national political party.
Right, exactly.
That's fantastic.
That's what he's doing, is building the
groundwork.
The
he's basically
he's
building the groundwork for that whole thing in the future.
Yeah, for the party to emerge, because he learned very early on in his meetings in Washington, from what I was following on Facebook, that we were going to need to be grassroots more so than just going to Washington and starting the party. We have started, with a little consulting from Zoltan, we have started a New York transhumanist party. Fuck yeah.
And then this is the headquarters of it. And that's a real thing that a lot of people are involved in.
Absolutely. That could take off with steam in Brooklyn, too, because there's so many
right, of course. Yeah. And it is, literally. We have a space in Brooklyn. Come see it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yo,
I was
going to
say,
we don't have a lot more time left in the broadcast, but I just wanted to bring up this conspiracy that I have about, you used to work at 30 Rock, and one of the producers, maybe took inspiration from your life and went to USA and then made Mr. Robot.
I literally, if you go on my Facebook, you will see pictures of me at USA with those guys. That's all I have to say.
Oh my God. So the rumors are true.
I'm going to change it to my profile picture. Listen, I don't know. I never seen the show. But like I said, I walked around the building. Enough people knew me that, I don't know.
Not only that, but you moved to Coney Island, and you originally were
purely coincidental.
Purely coincidental, right? But you were originally going.
The name, though.
You were going to rent an old arcade. That was going to be...
Yes, it was too expensive.
It was too expensive.
I actually, check this out. I've actually owned an arcade machine shop in Fort Lauderdale.
Oh my God.
I literally used to build arcade machines for a living in my early 20s. Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty awesome, man.
That's
a sweet starter job in your 20s.
That's where my
I painted
first hacking
engines in a boat
experiences.
factory.
My first hacking and my first hardware was all video games. Taking apart PlayStations, skinning them, mods, all that kind of stuff. And then I got into computers.
This is Get Busy Podcast. We're joined by Mr. Robot, Louis Arana of Robots Without Borders, and my co-host, Trailer Park Master Chef. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it. Thank you, Louis, for coming on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
We want to have you back, too.
Yeah, anytime, man.
Awesome. For those who want more information about your work, Louis, where can they find you?
Well, you could go to robotswithoutborders.org, or you can, Google me, Facebook me. I'm almost at my friend limit, but, got a few hundred slots left. And,
slots left.
Yeah, like I said, this is not easy. We don't have hardly any equipment here. We literally are starving digital artists. So anybody who likes what they are hearing and wants to help, go to robotswithoutborders.org. Give us $10, we'll be ecstatic.
Please donate. I will be donating after this podcast myself.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm probably going to run up and drop you $10 too, man. It was great to meet you, by the way. It was super interesting.
Thanks, man. I can't wait to come back. Yeah,
you should come back on.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening, as we are also just barely hanging on by a shoestring here. After you donate to Robots Without Borders, please... click the PayPal link, donate to this podcast. We want to get it to the point where it's self-sustainable, and every little
close.
bit
So
counts.
it's kind of the last chance to help right now.
Yeah, right, exactly. like this is no longer a plea. This is an order. You are to go to Robots Without Borders and deposit no less than $10.
Anybody who gives us $1 gets a copy of the first beta that comes out. That's my word. Give me anything. I see your name in any of those lists, you're getting an AI.
Bamsis.
Ooh.
That's it. Get your AI now. Go to robotswithoutborders.org. Donate. Go to getbusypodcast.com. Click our PayPal link. Donate to us. Help us continue to broadcast this message and help Louis save the world. Using robots and artificial intelligence. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We'll catch you next time. World peace.
Later.